seconds. 27.
26.
25 seconds.
24. 23.
22 seconds.
21 seconds.
20 seconds. 19.
18.
17 seconds.
16.
15 seconds.
14.
13 seconds.
12. 11.
10 seconds. 9.
8.
7.
6.
6 what?
Copy.
5 seconds.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Subspace Chatter, where we boldly go into discussing Star Trek. Today we'll be talking about the 6th episode of Lower Decks' new season, Hear All, Trust Nothing. So let's go around and do introductions. My name is Vanessa, and I host a channel called I Love Bad Star Trek. Dan?
Hi, I'm Dan. I'm editor of WarpFactoryTrack.com.
Hi, Monteban. I have the channel The Vault, where we review Star Trek The Next Generation every Wednesday at 8 o'clock.
I'm Scott. I'm host of the YouTube channel Opinions No One Cares About.
Hi, Captain Mike. I run a couple Facebook groups, Star Trek Early Voyages, and it's basically just a catch-all for sci-fi, Worlds of Tomorrow. Both are on Facebook, and quite a social media presence there, so that's usually where I am.
I'm Eve, and I'm with the Starfleet Academy College of Music.
And I'm Bob Vossler. I'm a longtime Starfleet member. I run a Starfleet chapter in New Jersey, and I'm the host of Spaced Out, a monthly podcast.
So let's start with, what was your favorite Easter egg in this episode?
So many.
There was loads. There was loads. I think mine's the most obvious one. I loved the seeing the Cisco baseball on Kira's desk. I think it's probably one of the most obvious ones out there, but it's still just, even now, all these, I suppose, years later, she still keeps that baseball on her desk to remind her of her old captain. So I thought that was nice.
Yeah.
I think just seeing Morn was at the bar was nice. And the opening with the music, just, when they were going around. And while I was watching that, my own personal feeling was, you can do this for 30 minutes and I will be riveted to this thing. That's how much I love Deep Space Nine. So
go around again.
Yeah. Do it again.
Right, the perfect reference. You go around and the wormhole opens. It's brilliant.
Exactly.
That was my favorite part too, is the Deep Space Nine theme, and then they're like, circle again, and I sat there and watched that all night.
Yes.
I love the way they did that for the fans as well, because they knew us fanboy and girls out here would be just whining to see that shot, and it's like it come to end and like, let's do it again.
I think it kind of fits Lower Decks. I mean, if it had been any other Star Trek show, the do it again wouldn't work. But for the Cerritos, because it works.
Yeah, I think there was a reference to like the Haru outpost or something like that, which I thought was a really quite cool reference. I looked up like any time they were saying like references to places around the earth like that, and quite. There was hardly any that was, from earlier Star Trek, but that was one of them that's from like the second episode of DS9 or something like that, where like Shaq saved,
Two are constantly saving each other.
Yeah, I just really loved the fact that this entire episode was essentially structured like a Ferengi episode of Deep Space Nine, where you have like other little subplots there. But like this was a Ferengi episode through and through, and that to me, like they understood like the structure of what made those episodes work as standalones.
I appreciated like that you saw like it also flashed out the Rhine culture a little bit.
Yeah, I like that there was the whole play between. Actually, I was going to say this episode finally we got some Tendi action.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like we finally got to see something about Tendi for once instead of the other three. Like not to put down the other three. It's just Tendy's just kind of keeps getting shoved to the side. It was nice to see, you know.
And she was awesome.
She
Well,
was.
That Easter egg bit we were talking about earlier, that was what I really liked. Was what was it? She was in the room sitting there, standing there watching the wormhole, and then they walk in, and then Freeman's introducing her people, and then it's like Shax, and he leans in, and they do this big, you know, handshake grip thing, and it's like, hey, I haven't seen you since the Resistance, and they get into a big run of like things they've done for each other, and that was great. That was great. That really brought me in a really great way. I was like, oh, cool, they were friends in the Resistance. I like this.
Their thing about you saved me here and I had to pay you back there, that kind of reminded me of Archer and Shran. That to me, like I got Archer and Shran vibes off that kind of. Because
Scott, what was your favorite Easter egg? Sorry.
I actually really would have wanted to see O'Brien's dartboard. Like I know Rutherford pointed it out, but I would have loved to have seen that. And to be honest, a little more of the promenade, because like they go walking down the promenade, Rutherford and Tendy and what's his name, Mesk. And you see like this one place that's like, oh, Batless are us. But then really not much more of it.
Batless are us.
Batless are us, yeah.
Apparently one of the Batless looks quite like the Sword of Kalis.
Really?
Why would the Sword of Kalis be there?
Well, I don't think it looked like exactly like a friend York.
Reproduction.
Yeah, replica.
You're selling replicas, yeah.
Somebody just commented Smiler Rainbow, them trying to one and each other was great. I saved your life more. Yes, absolutely. I agree. That was hysterical. I love that running joke. It was very well done.
Right? Like I saved your life on Delta. No, Delta Prime, the one with the trees.
It doesn't count. We were in prison together.
Totally Archer and Shran. Like totally, it totally reminded me of those two.
Adversarial but buddies.
Yeah. Although I have to say, like, our Bajoran officer in Lower Decks is quite large compared to most Bajorans we've seen. Like, I mean, that guy's not just ripped. He's like bloody Jesse the Body Ventura ripped or something. Like, he's the biggest, like, because all the other Bajorans we've ever seen have been on the smaller side, which, to be fair, would make sense if your planet's been depleted.
Yeah.
No, there was that other guy that served in the Resistance with Kira. I think his name was Pharrell.
Yeah, but we don't see many like huge Bajorans. Like he really stands out. He's like double Kira's size.
Yeah, the closest came to one other old Resistance fighter who was, I think, in a few episodes, and then I think he was killed off in one of the episodes. But he was a little burly, but not in comparison to this guy.
Yeah, this guy's huge.
Not very many barrel-chested Bajorans. It's a definite there.
That's pretty rare.
I remember, like, DS9 was noted for sort of introducing fuller figure, like Cardassian characters.
Yeah.
So where was Lieutenant the Dominion War Never Happened Levy during this episode?
Yeah, I asked this one because, like, you know, we're obviously they're at DS9. They're at the front lines of the Dominion War, right? So you got a guy 2 seasons earlier saying it never happened. Like, possibly he was transferred off the Cerritos before this, but if not, I would have liked to see like a scene, right, where like he's being thrown out of Quarks, like just as Captain Freeman walks in. She's like, "What's going on?" It's like, "This man's causing havoc among my customers, Captain, walking around saying the Dominion War never happened."
I have to wonder if they made that character as kind of a point for all the people in the real world who deny certain major wars never happened.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
I'm trying to say it as delicately as I can here, but
I would just not think that they would make a point to include like a denialist on DS9. Like maybe they were like found some excuse to reassign him somewhere else the day of or something, because that would not be good.
Maybe they sent him to go clean Riker's holodeck. Because you really wouldn't want a Dominion War denier on Deep Space Nine. If Quark doesn't get him, Kira will.
Yep.
Yeah.
speaking of the Hollow Streets and Quarks, I thought this episode's music seemed quite interesting because like when they are in Quarks, there's like jazz music playing. Like I was like, I can't remember that at all being in Quarks like in DS9 series. It seems like it might be like drifting down from the Hollow Streets or something, perhaps, but it's quite odd. Odd choice.
Yeah,
I
jazz
think,
would
like,
be more of a Riker thing, you know.
Yeah.
I remember like in the first episode of DS9 emissary, like they intentionally like have like alien sort of sounding music in Quarks. But yeah. So,
Hey, I'm just grateful we don't have anything as repetitive as the Cantina Band song playing in Quarks.
Yep.
I mean, it's a brilliant piece of music, but it's annoying.
It's repetitive.
Was there a Cisco jazz
Oh,
link?
that could be, but I didn't think of that. Yeah.
Well, that's more the more the actor, isn't it? Than Cisco as
No,
the
like
character?
Cisco
New
is from
Orleans.
New Orleans.
Right.
New Orleans is
Oh,
known for jazz.
And
So I
also
would so that's a little bit of a stretch. But I could I could see that. I could see
don't think it's a
that.
stretch. I could see it as well. Like I remember them like Cisco doing a duet that Vix in His Way, for example.
Yep.
Yep.
That's true.
And Vic's style does straddle the jazz era.
Exactly.
Considering he's supposed to essentially be like Sinatra. So actually that's kind of disappointing we didn't get to see Vix. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, that would have been nice. That would have been really nice. And I bet, you know, he would have come back in a heartbeat, you know, to lend his voice to it.
Yeah, I think Darren's still around too, so he'd be available.
Yeah.
If they wanted
yeah,
him.
he's a very nice guy. Very nice man. So
Why aren't the Karema? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bob.
No, I was going to say it's a shame we didn't get to see a couple more characters, really, whether that be Vix or Jake or I don't know,
Mom and Lita,
Bashir.
Yeah, I mean it's good to see Kira and Quark, but it's a shame they didn't have one or two more.
Some of our favorite Cardassians would have been nice.
You know, like I this is a question I asked later, but you know, there's a lot of loose ends DS9 has. Like, are Ezri and Ezri and Bashir still together? You know, is Bajor part of the Federation yet? Is Jake still waiting for his father? Like, which loose ends do you guys think, or y'all think, would you have liked to see tied up in this episode?
Would have liked to see why can't I remember her name now? Cisco's new girlfriend, wife.
Cassidy Yates.
Thank you.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Like she was pregnant at the end of Deep Space Nine, so it's like, did she have the baby? Did the baby, you know, live? Is the baby? I don't want to use the word normal, but I don't know what else to use, considering Cisco is supposedly a half prophet.
Right.
So would that have affected the baby in any way? Like, is it a normal baby, or is it like some kind of hybrid prophet baby like Cisco?
She's probably living off DS9. She's probably off planet, maybe Bajor, maybe Earth. You know,
and
she may
episode of this Cisco Family Cafe restaurant in New Orleans. I mean, yeah, I guess there was jazz there in the restaurant. Anyway, that thank you, Smiler Rainbow.
I guess also like for fans or viewers that like want more like from DS9. In addition to this episode, there's always like the comics and novels,
which are only considered canon until they change it.
Right.
Something I always wanted to know about was Rom and Lita. Like, what happened to them, and like, you know, the state of the politics on Ferenginar after they took over. Like
Moogie, yeah, because
interesting.
Because Moogie set in motion a lot of changes when she was with the Nagus. So
yeah, that's true. Like, as much as I deeply despise Prophet and Lace, I think that it brought about a really important change with women having agency, at least in terms of like having a job or money or whatever. So, or being able to leave the house at all. So how has that
And wearing
progressed? Like,
clothes.
do they have like women candidates for Grand Nagus, that kind of thing?
Because Moogie's the original feminist in Star Trek when you think about it. She's probably the most feminist.
Well, she's from an oppressive thing, so she has to, she has barriers to push through. Whereas, like in the Federation, allegedly, men and women are equal, and all genders are equal.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, I like how Rom took over and like it definitely felt like he had a progressive bend in him that was going to carry on things his mother had come up with.
He had a union.
Yes.
He had a union.
And his wife's pretty capable too, from waitress to first lady of Ferenginar and Heartbeat.
I guess like I'm remembering Liquidator brunt shotting down quarks and stuff like that. With what you're saying about Rom and Lita and the new politics on Ferenginar, I guess. It's clearly like not enough to have shut down quarks, to have prevented like the franchising of quarks.
He basically turned it into Quark's version of Starbucks, one on every block.
Yeah.
We could put a Quarks Express instead.
Yeah.
Sounds like he lost a pretty good chunk of pie by the end of the episode, though.
76% of profit, yeah.
But he's Quark. He'll come back. He always does.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's got the plan.
He's got the lobes.
Somewhere far away, Odo gets the news and laughs his ass off about it. I guess.
Entire Great Link just bursts out in laughter.
I would just hope that Sisko would eventually come back and visit his child periodically. I don't see any reason why he shouldn't be able to. He's unbound by time and space, so he can go be wherever he wants to be. So I would just hope that they would do that, because I really didn't like that they left Cassidy Yates alone with her baby. I didn't like that at all.
Yeah, because he was actually, up to that point, he was actually doing, like, he did a really good job depicting the role of a single dad, which single dads even now is still not that common. It's still mostly single moms. And the fact that, not to, again, trying to be delicate here, but statistically speaking, I know in the States, I can't speak for I don't know about Canada, but in the States, I know that missing Black fathers, absent Black fathers is a huge concern. And that there tends to be a lot more of them. And so when they had Sisko like leave her, I'm like, you just totally destroyed 7 years of a great single dad raising his child, and now he abandons his new child. Like, to me, that kind of
well, under the circumstances, I think it's under the extraordinary circumstances. I think it's understandable. Although, didn't Cassidy end up becoming a doctor, going on another ship, and falling in love with the robot?
He did fall in love with the Jello guy.
Yeah.
You know. Oh, maybe wrong show. Never mind.
Wait, the Orville might as well be canon.
It might as well. You know, it's just a slightly different universe, you know.
You get that with Galaxy Quest too. People are like, it's pretty much a Star Trek movie.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting to read about the making of this Lower Decks episode, where like the actress of Mariner was firstly apparently like not on DS9, the space station, at all. And the actress was such a fan of DS9, she was like, "Are you serious? Are you joking?" When she had the conversation with the writer of the episode. So then he rewrote the script and included her at the end. You know, she meets both Kira and Quark, like, you know, very much near the end of the episode.
Right.
So we got another comment. Sisko was an epic male role model of a father, though. Absolutely agree. Yeah, I think he was a wonderful dad. I think he absolutely learned, or it sort of modeled for people how to have a work-life balance. Because most captains on Star Trek, it's all work and nothing behind the curtain. With Cisco, he's a fully rounded human being, and I love that.
No,
yeah, my brother thought it was a real stinger whenever he like, you know, he has to leave Jake at the end. Like, my brother hated that. He's like, he can't, he left Jake, man. That sucks.
I think Avery Brooks specifically asked that they write for him to say that I am coming back.
Yeah.
That he is not just leaving.
Right.
So why aren't the Karema, the aliens that visit from the Gamma Quadrant, held accountable for shutting down the power on the Cerritos, nearly killing everyone at the salon? I don't get it.
And more to the point, how did that
just
work?
Cool.
Yeah.
How did that
down
work?
The station, that makes sense, but was the power connected to was the Cerritos connected to their power grid?
Well, they were in dry dock.
Yeah, they must have been hooked up with umbilicals, so it infected them too.
I just saw it as some kind of a pulse thing that, like we have now, that's what they were strapped. It was strapped to the one representative, and that it activated and it just knocked out all power systems.
Like an EMP.
If you think about it too much, it just gets messy. So
right.
But they should have been held accountable. Yeah.
So like they got locked up for, kidnapping Quark, but not at all. They didn't even get reprimanded or have a conversation even about there being no oxygen in one particular room, nearly killing everybody. That just seems a little like a little wacky to me.
Yeah, I mean, even though Quark, let's face it, anything that happens to Quark, they're like, oh, all right, it's Quark, and he's a pain in the butt. But still, cutting the oxygen off from, a bunch of people. Now that's serious.
Is it possible that, when you first see the Karama and they're like, oh, if our negotiations don't work, we've still got like a fallback plan, and they see the device before they actually use it. Is it perhaps possible that like Starfleet and or the Federation could think, let's be lenient with these people because like in a way that's like their part of their negotiation tactic?
Yeah,
I mean, that's an argument.
That's a lot of leniency. And it's like, what do they have that's so valuable that you're willing to sort of like look past almost killing people? Like what?
And, well, also to be fair, they didn't know that it would kill people.
Right, but it's like involuntary manslaughter. Like you still should like there like a discussion, a mention. Smiler Rainbow said electromagnetic pulse. Sure, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's how I saw it.
Yeah, that's what I thought was EMP. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like in the Matrix when they use an EMP to knock things out.
Yeah.
Or like in typical disco style.
I wonder if they could claim diplomatic immunity or something like that because they were there for sort of negotiations as diplomats. So maybe
Die Hard too.
Diplomatic immunity. Maybe they couldn't prosecute them on anything for those kind of reasons. Also, when this went out, why didn't Mariner use her phaser to like cut through the door? I mean, obviously, quickly knocking everybody else out because the oxygen, that's one thing. But then why does she shoot herself? I mean, the ship could have been being invaded or something bad could have been happening where she might have been needed to mount a rescue. So why would you just knock yourself out? I mean, you don't know what's going on.
But Mariner's impulsive and doesn't always think things through either.
Right.
She tends to be very much in the moment. So,
and her girlfriend pointed out that they needed to cover their tracks, and that's what they came up with. And I think Mariner defaults to trying to appear, at least in this episode, trying to appear as if she didn't do the thing.
I love Jen. She's like, man, I want you to bust out on these guys. I want you to give them hell.
Yeah.
And
That
then she just goes mad dog on
whole thing was so weird. That whole
Yeah.
thing. Why? Yeah. So, like, why would Jennifer expect Mariner to boss around her friends? Like, that's such a weird thing to expect from a partner. Like, to put that on them.
I thought it was just some
Why?
some Dorian thing.
The girl who runs the salon, though, you can tell she's like got a queen bee attitude. Jen is definitely not the person in charge of that room. That's for sure.
It's a
Probably
variation
like
of
the
the Mean Girls theme.
Yeah, Mariner comes in and pushes her off her high horse. Jen loves that.
Yeah.
Mariner is not a hero figure, though. She's an anti-hero, I suppose. I think in the salon they justifiably say, "Oh, you're very contrary," but the context they bring it up in is really ridiculous because they're just like, Mariner's like, "I don't want to say some ridiculous poem. This is stupid. I don't want to do it."
Yeah.
And that's what they base their character summation on. That whole
Mariner's
scene is so weird.
Mariner is not a hero. She's a protagonist. She's not a hero. She's a protagonist. Protagonist with a lot of edge.
And antagonist and protagonist, but sort of like right by way of being protagonist. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, she does shoot herself in the foot a lot in plot lines with her own attitude.
Yeah.
But like, what do you think, Montalban? Like, why do you think, like, what would you think if you had a relationship where someone's like looked to you to sort of push their friends around? Like,
yeah, I think it may be, as Dan was saying, maybe it's the way her culture works, because she's Andorian, is she?
Yeah.
So, maybe it's like that's the Andorian way or something. I don't know. Maybe they just their social interactions are just different. I don't know.
The Andorian way would be to actually be the pusher.
Be the pusher. Yeah.
Not try to maneuver someone else to do the pushing, but
get out your mining knife and take her down.
Yeah, Andorians tend to be pretty okay with confrontation from what we've seen.
The aggressors,
even,
aren't they?
Female and male, would be I think would be equivalent, would be the same.
Yeah, maybe that's why she wanted
to
see
manipulate somebody else.
Although Andorians being a four-gendered species, maybe she's one of the ones that, for her gender, that's just the way they are.
Yeah.
Has the four-gendered nature of the species been established in canon, though?
Yeah.
As
far as I know.
I only remember it being like in the novels and stuff.
Because that's why they had like a population problem because of it.
That may not be canon even. I don't know.
I don't think part of it might have also been like Jen knew what her friends were going to be like. Like right from the beginning, they were kind of throwing backhanded compliments at Mariner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she just wanted like, yeah, I want to see you boss them around. Put them in their place. Bunch of proto-Karens.
Why is Jennifer even friends with these people is my question.
Right?
Like, why would she even be friends with people so flaky and so self-serious and like why would she be friends with people that she clearly doesn't even like?
They were old friends.
Academy, didn't she?
Yeah. Bob
there's
got
friends,
it.
right?
Yeah. Long-time friends.
The thing is, in real life, though, don't most of us usually have a couple of friends that really are probably not friends?
Or friends that we accept their unusual idiosyncrasies and their,
but she wasn't accepting
like things we don't like about them, but we like them for other reasons, but we wish that they wouldn't do certain things.
I didn't really see Jennifer enjoying these people's company at all. It was just so weird. She wanted to maybe wanted Marina to say the things to the friend she wanted to say herself, but wasn't brave or strong enough. Still, that's pretty manipulative, though. Like,
yeah, Andorian.
I just
they're doing
maybe I'm looking in the wrong place for like a healthy, balanced relationship. But like, if I was in that situation, I would be so uncomfortable.
It's sort of reminding me more of like the Vulcans than the Zodians, especially like our early relationship with Vulcan, where Vulcan was quite manipulative.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes. See, Vulcans, Like, I guess I don't know Jennifer well enough to really know if this is like an aberration in her character, if this is just who she is.
That's right.
Or if this is like a bad thing. Like, I kind of wish, we got a little bit more background on Jennifer. So why did Jen's friends consider their candles more important than breathing?
I got an answer. Because they're idiots. That's all I got to say about it.
I
Those
thought
are pretty good candles.
I thought it was taking a little bit. To me, it reminded me of like, for instance, you know how they always say you don't have to ask a person if they're vegan; they'll tell you. I have to wonder if they were trying to make fun of that, like how some people get so passionate about one thing to the exclusion of common sense.
Yeah.
Like, because that's what it reminded me of.
Does anybody know what a salon is? Because salon, as far as I know, is like what we call a hairdresser's, where you get your hair cut.
If the genders were different in Mariner's relationship with that, excuse the behavior. No. Smiler Rainbow, thank you for the comment, but no, I'm baffled by this entire scene so much.
Montalban, you asked about what a salon is.
A salon, yeah.
Yeah, it's this one, actually Dan might know this one too. Basically that goes back to like the Victorian and Edwardian eras, where ladies would have a salon where they would get together to embroider or discuss things. And
I was
often it was done in classical music, like Chopin, for instance. Chopin was not known for big stage performances. He held a lot of salons where he would have his close associates come over and he would perform his music for them. It's basically like a gathering, just like a casual gathering that happens on a regular basis, where it could be about books, it could be about art, it could be about literature. It's basically about stuff like that. It's an old term, like a very old term.
Thank you, Eve. I did not know that. Thanks.
Smiler Rainbow has said the candles were like a prayer or a promise or an intention. It would have been a subtle nod to the religion theme of Deep Space Nine. Like I know the Bajorans, lit candles, Vulcans like candles.
But the fact that you keep them going in a room full of thin air is insane. Insane.
They wouldn't
This
keep it
salon
on at their own peril, I don't think.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, they told their stories. They did the Kobayashi Maroon, which was also a great reference.
Yeah. I like that. There's no wrong way to perform it.
Does it always end in tragedy?
Which is oddly like the Humpty Dance.
Thanks to that, I now have a term to refer to all the kids dancing at the kids' parties I DJ. I'm going to call their dance style the Kobayashi Maru, because
yes,
we know it doesn't always end in tragedy.
It's a no-win scenario.
Kirk reprogrammed the simulation.
Yeah.
So if you
That's
reprogram
cheating.
Yeah.
If you don't cheat, it always ends in disaster.
I think they
He just
didn't.
eats an apple
blow
while
out
he
the candles
cheats too.
because- Yeah, I think they didn't blow out the candles because they wanted to like create this group. They really wanted to paint these people as flat stereotypes as possible and as quickly as possible in a very shorthanded way. So they're going to make them as, oh my god,
boneheaded as possible.
They kind of reminded me of like, these are like Starfleet's version of like the basic person, like somebody who likes infinity scarves and pumpkin spice and like, certain kinds of boots, like Uggs. That's what it kind of reminded me of. They really wanted to like
basic
create like a
making fun of pumpkin spice,
It kind of reminded me of Ronin, so I was wondering like if they're like major fans of Sub Rosa and want to like recreate the ghost that comes from the candle.
Oh gosh!
God!
Oh
Who
no!
wants to see that?
Well, maybe they do.
Okay, if they want to see that, they need to get out more.
I just thought they were flaky. It's like our IKEA lives are more important than breathing. It's like, okay, give it up already.
Yeah. Vanessa kind of hit the nail on the head with what she said, with what I was trying to think of earlier, the word stereotype. Yeah, they were basically trying to make them a very easy to recognize stereotype of, like you said, basic, the pumpkin spice crowd.
Well, it was shocking the way they were so flaky too, because like Jen seems to be, pretty confident person, not a flake like those girls.
That's true.
So, we were talking about earlier, like characters that we kind of wish that were featured. So, like if this lower decks included another DS9 main character, who would you choose?
Garrick.
Bashir.
Garrick.
I think we lost something by not having Garrick. It just would have been.
Yeah.
Garrick. And they mentioned a clothing shop or a tailor or something that was on the promenade, but we never saw it.
Yeah.
The thing is, he's back in Cardassia now, leading the Cardassian people, isn't he? So I guess that he could have been there for some sort of diplomatic function or something, but they'd have to write him in, I guess.
I mentioned Ram and Lita, and it's just the fact that it involves Ferengi business practice could have been an excuse to have them showing up at the end, maybe.
Yeah. Plus, Andrew Robinson's voice would have been just so cool to have.
Yeah.
Literally, his voice is really cool. So, it would have been nice to see him there in some form.
It's always so weird for me when I see a picture of him nowadays. I'm like, I can't reconcile Garrick looking like someone's kindly grandfather.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm alone in this, but I would have loved to have seen Jake.
Oh, yeah.
Was there a reference to Jake when Rutherford went up on the top, and I think he said something like, I was hoping to talk to the lead reporter or something like that?
Well, he said that he's always in the holo bids.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, so maybe, I think they possibly did miss a trick there with not including him. It would have been good to see that he was all right with his dad going and he was now successful in what he was doing, or, had some scoops, or maybe was even following the exploits of the Cerritos or something like that, in a reporter capacity.
The last view we see of him was standing, the final shot of DS9 standing with Kira, like missing his dad, basically.
Yeah.
Having Morn actually say something would have been interesting. Like after all this time, and he actually has a speaking line in lower decks. I think that would be funny.
Or even when Quark is told that the Catamor are going to be making so much percentages from quarks, then maybe have like Morn saying, "You're beep," so that even when he speaks, it's beep there.
Yeah. That works.
Well, there is somebody told me that if you watch the German version of Deep Space Nine with subtitles on, Morn ends up with one word or something.
Oh.
I can't remember if it's the German one or not, but I know it's one of the European ones. And yeah, they said in the subtitles he has one word, but only in the subtitles.
Yeah.
Hey guys, if you're not talking, try to mute so that there's a whooshing sound. Just FYI. I'm all about the Cisco. We really wish Cisco would come back. I know that there may be reasons that he's not on there, but I've always hoped that he comes back, see what he's up to, how he feels about the Bajor thing, being a prophet, all that. I would love to catch up with him and see him with his dad again and that kind of thing. Or acknowledge the people that aren't there, like Nog and Cisco's father, as a memorial in memoriam.
Odo.
Exactly.
I mean, because there's Deep Space Nine does have a lot of not with us anymore actors at this point. I mean, we just lost another one. We lost Louise Fletcher, so
yeah,
exactly. And it's very timely that we get this DS9 episode right around when we lose her. So
yeah.
yeah, there's some there. It would have been nice to see if she was able to Kai win. That would have been really great.
But her character had been killed off, in the finale.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. But even just
she
like
did fall into a fire pit, so that's a little.
It's pretty final,
But a reference, to her would have been nice because she played such a big role. Like she really played a big role.
I thought it might have been cool if they'd said like, at the start, like in memory of Louise Fletcher or whatever.
Yeah, but that was probably too late by that time.
Yeah, they probably had everything drawn and done, and then because they're going to be working ahead of what like things. So
yeah, I asked that because I'm curious about like the loose ends and the other characters and everything too, because I read one review where a guy said, there's a lot of things that they could have talked about and they just chose not to because it's a cartoon and they don't have to, but like it would have been nice. That's all. So how does everybody like this Bold Boimler shtick?
I mean, I'm good with Bold Boimler. That's working out for me as a character. I was a little surprised that apparently Bold Boimler translates to Lucky Boimler at the Dabo table, unless he's worked out a system for winning at Dabo that we don't know about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was great the way he won and it rode, and he completely they didn't pull the rug out on him like they do sometimes in situations where he seems to be doing well. And here it's like, no, he rode all the way to the end with a pile of gold, but he's all like, oh my God. He's like, would you like these Quark bucks instead? He's like, yeah, obviously, man. I don't even use gold. He just walks away, and the Ferengie's just like flabbergasted. Like, what?
I love the part where he's like cheating at a Quarks. That would never happen.
Yeah, because as soon as they said that, my first thought was Ala Moraine, 1, 2, 3.
Well, I love the way he just plays it straight too. Like he never tries to do anything underhanded. He just plays the game, and Dabo just keeps coming up for him over and over.
Why did he think it was illegal? Because he mentions that. Like, I thought Dabo was illegal. Since when was Dabo illegal?
Maybe it was on other facilities.
Yeah, maybe Starfleet doesn't allow gambling generally, so that kind of game wouldn't be okay.
Then let's explain the poker tables.
Or maybe it's in the timeline where Time Zero does actually happen.
Yeah. And Deep Space Nine would have run under different rules, having been occupied by the Cardassians anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
and owned by the Bajorans.
And it's an outpost. It's not really like a station, Federation station.
It always, it felt the same as Babylon 5. It was this place that was outside of the normal bounds of like, regular service law for the rest of their like, because like it's Bajoran, right? It's kind of semi-affiliated with the Federation.
Oh.
It was their Mos Eisley.
A frontier.
Speaking of the station, like another plot line that I realized is sort of being unresolved as far as I can remember is basically forms quite a big part of like the entire series premise of Deep Space Nine, which is like the whole like mission about like whether like Bajor is part of the Federation or not. Like as far as we know, they're still not included in the Federation, I think.
It depends when this is next to Picard, because I think there was a scene in Picard which shown Bajor as a part of the Federation on a wall of an admiral's office, but that might be after when this took place. So
this clearly took place before.
So probably
this is
not
somewhere between Picard. I think Picard's probably still even in Starfleet at this point. So,
but there does appear to be that this station. This station is now seems to be 100% run by Bajorans. When you go to ops and that, there's no Federation members of staff around. It's all Bajoran now, so it seems to be Bajoran controlled.
I think it makes perfect sense that they would not want to be in the Federation because they were occupied by the Cardassians for years and decades and had to fight a resistance to get rid of them. So it's like, why would we want more colonizers? Why would we want more imperialism? I don't know, more hegemony over like being under the rule of somebody else. Forget it. No way. We've done it already. We're good. So that makes perfect sense to me.
I've always thought
Kira's still a colonel, by the way.
I've always thought Bajor should be kind of neutral from the Federation because of the wormhole, because as soon as they join the Federation, the rest of the quadrant is going to see it as the Federation owns the wormhole.
I think I'm remembering the episode Rapture where like Sisko's has these visions and he's like if Bajor enters the Federation, like
they get wiped out.
Yeah, basically there's like major disasters happen.
I think the Prophets too might have a hand in it, because we do know the Prophets do take a very active role in the Bajoran people's lives. So I would think too, like in order for Bajor to even join, they would have to have like the blessing of the Prophets, essentially.
I miss seeing the inside of the wormhole in this episode. I thought that would have been cool if they included that. But I thought
See the Prophets again. Why not?
Yeah. Or even just love like, for example, in the emissary, where they're like flying through the wormhole. It's nice like CGI, but also I wondered like if that might have taken like too long for the animators to animate or whatever. And I did think like, oh, maybe they are going to enter the wormhole, but then no, they're just stopped right on like the event horizon sort of thing.
As far as like Bold Boimler, though, I actually think it's just a way to sort of like half develop the character, where he's taking on a sort of persona on himself to sort of embolden him to do things that he wouldn't otherwise do because he's anxiety ridden and is overly hypervigilant.
Yeah.
So it's like a kid with a towel around their neck thinking that they're a superhero kind of thing, like and jumping on the couches. That's how I see it.
Yeah, you can picture Boimler doing exactly that.
Yeah.
I thought about like the customizable card game that there used to be back in the day, and like surely like him sort of acting bolder might like increase like one of the statistics at the bottom of the card or whatever. It's like bolstering the whatever team he's in statistically, surely.
I just thought it was, I don't know. It feels like it's a good thing for him as a character. It's just, Mariner needs to obey things a little bit more when she gets given orders, and Boimler needs to be more proactive sometimes. I mean, Tandy pointed it out in that other episode, and it's just makes sense for both characters that they both need to kind of move a little bit in terms of where they're sitting in life, because it's just, otherwise they're just characters in ruts if they don't develop them a little bit.
Yeah. Plus, it's part of their growing process.
Yeah.
They're still young officers,
Do you like Bold Boimler Montalban?
I had to remember what that was about, because when you said it, I was like, why are they calling him Bold Boimler? I was like, that was because of that chase episode, wasn't it, where he got chased around and decided he was going to be more bold, I guess.
When he got hunted, you mean?
Yeah, that one. Yeah. It's fine. I'm with I think was it Mike that said, I don't know why, or was it opinion? No one cares. Don't know why that translates to lucky. But he needs to move and change. He needs to be more adventurous, and Mariner needs to be a little more regimented in what she does. So I guess it's good to grow. Just be see where it goes, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't know if it translates to him being more lucky, but it was kind of like this whole thing with him at the Dabo table in this episode was just kind of to give him something to do, because everybody else had their own plots.
Yeah,
I also thought it might be a riff.
Sorry, Dan.
I was just going to say, I thought it also might be like a riff or reference to I can't remember the name of the episode, but like there was an episode where like all the luck on the station, because of the neutrinos, I think it was, changed, and it was like the only episode where we've seen an Elorian, I think, obviously apart from Generations, the only apart from Guinan. I can't remember the name of that.
Yeah, but the Elorians were pretty much wiped out, so that's why we don't really see them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, he was a swindler, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember that.
I have to wonder if maybe they had Boimler win like that. One, because we've always wanted to see Quark. Like, who doesn't want to see Quark actually have to, somebody breaks the jackpot at Quark's? Like, it's never really happened. And then for him to just at the end turn around and be like, yeah, I don't want it. You can keep it. Like, I think they did that on purpose, but just so we could for once see somebody essentially give Quark the middle finger. Like, I did this to entertain myself. I'm done now. Go back to your little Ferengi things.
That's also like, it might also be a reference again to that Alan Moraine episode where like the folks just played Dabo all night long. The Wadi played Dabo all night long and kept winning and like made Quark sweat. That really upset him because he'd have to eventually like pay out all those winnings. So the harvest workers at Boimler's farm and the girls going silly for Boimler on DS9, like the Dabo girls and Jennifer's friends, like, is he oblivious? Like, what is going on? Does he have some kind of animal magnetism, or why does he not notice that?
I think it was a nice sequel to the prior story that this was continued on, and a cute little bit. And, it also worked into the whole stereotype that we were talking about before of these girls, officers, I should say. I think it fit in with what they were trying to do with that group. So
are they necessarily officers? I thought they might include like.
Well, not officers, but members of Starfleet. I shouldn't refer to them just as girls.
But what young guy? Because if these guys are ensigns, they're in their 20s most likely. So what 20-something male, whether it's same sex or the opposite sex that's attracted to them, who's that oblivious? Like,
I know a lot.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Boimler's so career focused though. Like, he has zero radar for girls being interested in him. Like, if they showed him both situations, he has no idea those women are interested in him. Yeah. And he has some kind of appeal, obviously, as far as they're concerned. So
it's the hair.
It's got to be the hair. Unnatural hair totally does it for people.
Yeah.
I like how it runs. It runs so contrary to what Mariner expects. Like, oh yeah, he's just a gibbering, weak-kneed loser, and it's just like, no, we think he's great. She's just like, what? Everything's wrong in my world today. Like, Jen's friends had her upside down too. The whole thing was just funny, top to bottom for her.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility that maybe they've got him oblivious, just kind of to make him opposite of Riker, because he admires Riker. We know that. Like, he's definitely got a thing for Riker.
That's what I was kind of thinking, that he's like the anti-Riker.
Yeah, because Riker,
cautious, not.
Yeah, because
a slut. Like, very chaste.
If it was in the Next Generation, if it was female, Riker was in bed with it. So, like, seeing Boimler being so clueless, but his hero is Riker.
Mm-hmm.
It's become kind of a weird character inversion, though, because I was thinking back to Much Ado About Boimler, like the nurses that were on the farm, like he was into them. He like wanted to be like all messed up again so he could go back to them. So like what happened there that apparently switched him and has just like totally thrown his focus off?
Maybe because he wasn't in his best shape at that point. I mean, if you're seeing nurses, obviously something's wrong. And I mean, if he wasn't well or something else, like, all of us act differently when we're, sick or not feeling ourselves.
Maybe he's afraid of a relationship,
Boimler needs a
I
date.
do hope this running joke has some kind of payoff and that it actually means something. And it's not just something that they're like, see, he's oblivious. See, he's oblivious. Like it would get old after a while, because if it does, it's not given a reason, then it's just kind of this empty joke that they're making over and over again with no point.
And that Mariner would have to sit down and explain it to him and say, duh, go, she likes you. Go, go for it, And then him coming like the light bulb on his head saying, really? Oh, I didn't think of that.
Because I mean, I see the career focus thing to the exclusion of all else more as Rutherford and Tendi, like them not pursuing relationships and stuff, that it fits with their characters. Like they are very career focused. Boimler's like not career focused, more like just obsessed. Like I almost get feelings of from him.
But you never see him go on dates or any suggestion of anybody he's really been with, other than that one girl that he's seen that they kind of catch him out as like, oh yeah, that was an alien parasite.
He needs alien parasites for aphrodisiacs.
He's worried deep down that his next girlfriend will be a parasite again.
Maybe they're trying to sort of like have it both ways, where they sometimes engage in sexual behavior, but they don't want to have like a multi-episode arc where there's like a developing relationship or things like that. So they sort of like keep them in this liminal quasi-asexual space. So like finally we have some backstory on Tendi. So what do we think about Tendi embracing her identity, and will she steal more?
I thought it was great.
That was awesome.
I thought that was great. Like it was nice to finally get something on her, because like they poked around it a lot, telling us like, there's something deeper with this character, and it could possibly be a little bit underhanded that in her past, some of the things she was involved with, but they never dived right into it until like, with this other Orion fella, and kind of brings everything to light. And I thought it was really neat the way they finally got into it, and the way they did that as parallel character development of what was going on with Mariner and Jen. And it was nice to get exploration of a couple of characters at the same time. And getting into Tendi was nice because it was just something they've circled around for a long time. So finally just getting right at it was pretty cool.
I think getting Tendi's payoff was almost worth the fact that we hadn't seen any real episodes focusing on her. We finally got a really good episode of her showing the backstory. And I want to know how long it's going to take for Playmates to introduce that new little Orion prop that we're all going to want, that can opener that can do like 100 different things. So
I love the way that was animated when she'd had enough and she just grabbed it and went through a whole series of actions, like just went full on pirate.
I love the part where that guy just sees her, gets scared, and jumps to his death.
What happens to him? Does he just die?
He just gets scared and jumps.
He's like, I'm out.
This is a weird thought. Because this was a Deep Space Nine episode, essentially. And Deep Space Nine is where they really started digging into Section 31. That Tendi's skills would be exactly what Section 31 would want.
Yeah, let's not go there. That's true, though. But
yeah, it's just a weird thought.
Please, no more Section 31, please.
I like Section 31, but I know
they did explore it in the Deep Space Nine documentary. What we left behind?
Yeah.
Yes.
Where they talked about a possible 8th series, and they said they could have Bashir has gone a bit to the dark side and headed up Section 31 using his massive intellect, and whether you could bring Bashir into that, bringing it back. Have him come and scout for her.
The other reason I thought of it is because there's supposed to be a Section 31 show in the works. So, and they always seem to pick certain types. Like we saw Malcolm You know, Malcolm said he joined because it was, you know, covert ops and he was a young ensign and spy on people. And Bashir, we know, had a thing for all that cloak and dagger nonsense and the brains to go with it. Somebody like Tendi would be shooting fish in a barrel for them to recruit her.
I don't think she'd join. I think her and Rutherford feel like they're both characters who have turned a page from who they were versus who they are now.
They're very moral.
She sure fell back into her old syndicate ways very quickly at the end there.
Helping her friends.
I was thinking
she needed to employ those skills, but not that wouldn't necessarily be, you know, the direction she would go in. She would use those skills to serve the Starfleet and save her friends, but I don't believe she'd want to go in that direction. That would take a lot of indoctrination on the behalf of Section 31.
Unless they were going after the Syndicate, because she does not have a love for the Syndicate. We know that.
Yeah. There's a story there. Yeah.
What were you saying, Dan?
I was thinking it might be cool if they did like the Section 31 instead of a show, but like as a follow-up to like the SETI Alpha 5 podcast, you know, dramatized podcast, and make it just like audio rather than a canon TV series.
Who liked the sea shanties, by the way, in this episode? The pirate song.
That was the only thing that I found odd, that it took a sort of like wannabe pirate Orion, whose name I completely forget, to sort of draw that out of Tendi. I thought that was a kind of a weak way to go about it, because that character is never going to appear again. I guarantee it. So it's like this person that's super obnoxious, super like, you know, like, guess what I do? I steal. Let's talk about stealing. Like that was like, I got the joke the first time. It was a little bit grating. It didn't need to go as long as it did. I think Tendi could have just been the pirate in the moment when she needed to. I don't think we needed that theme of like internalized self-hatred. I mean, like, we didn't need this character to sort of like draw that out of her. I think they could have used the plot itself to have her switch gears and be the pirate to save the day.
I don't know. I think he was interesting to have as a catalyst for her, and he was. I mean, here's a guy that lived in Cincinnati, so of course he's looking for an identity.
Yeah, he's a fraud. He's a total fraud. I loved that about him.
Yeah. We kind of knew there had to be more to him than the stereotype that he was trying to become, because he was over the top. So the fact that he was not anything that he was trying to pretend to be was, I think, you know, balanced out the reverse of her being a little bit more of what he wanted to be and what she was, you know, what she was repulsed about. So I think it was a nice counterbalance of them both, you know. And
I thought Musk was really interesting because, like you're saying, like he was basically like between two worlds with the Ryans and having grown up in Cincinnati, and I do think like this episode like seems to make the connection between that and like, well, at least as I was recalling it, like I remember reading it through like DS9 companion book, and it was like the writing staff DS9 were talking so much about Quark being a character that started like touring between like two worlds with like the Ferengi, but also like being on the space station. And regarding Quark, like I don't know if did you feel like he sounded? Did you feel like Armin Shipman sounded like the same as like when he delivered lines as Quark during the series? Because,
his voice was a little off.
Just a little bit, yeah.
I did like really like. I mean, he's a bit older, I would imagine. But I did like really like listen closely because he had a very distinct cadence and voice and everything. But it sounded as I think a part of it was the fact that he was wearing like prosthetic teeth. So that would obviously
I think
like
he
change
was.
the way that the vocals would come out.
Yeah, the
So
way he
either
speaks.
he was in the booth with the weird teeth, or he tried his best without the teeth. But I did kind of like key in on that for sure.
It's really
His
interesting
voice-
you say that.
His voice, from my perspective, because I can see it, his voice didn't, it was the same color it's always been, but it wasn't steady. Like it was shimmering, which to me means he was maybe a little bit rusty even at doing some of the Quark lines. Like kind of like when you bring, like with a lot of shows, when you bring back actors from a long time ago and they have to get back into that character. Like I found as it went on, he sounded more and more like Quark, but at the start he didn't quite sound like Quark. He sounded like he was trying to get back into Quark.
Like both myself and the reviewer for warpfactortrack.com of this particular episode and the season of Vortex thought that he sounded like he wasn't wearing the Quark teeth. But then, like about 3 days ago, Armin Shiverman tweeted that he was wearing the Quark teeth at the time, and he was saying like playing Quark without the teeth is not the same. It's not the right characterization.
You got to remember he's 72 years old now.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
You're not going to have the same timbre and the same cadence when you get into your 70s.
Yeah.
It's just, it's going to be different. But I think you could tell he was wearing the teeth.
Yeah, you can. I was thinking too with Mesk, when somebody said he's straddling two worlds and he's like trying to find his identity. Worf. Look at Worf. How was Worf? Worf was always, I'm Klingon. Klingons don't this. Klingons don't that. Klingons this.
That's fair.
And Guinan kind of threw it in his face like, no, you don't laugh. Klingons laugh, but you don't laugh. Like he had it thrown in his face more than once that he was trying to, even Jadzia told him more than once, he was trying to out Klingon the Klingons essentially because he didn't really know his own identity. And so I kind of thought Mesk was like
a good example, but I think like maybe like the DS9 writers were trying to do it with like all the characters, basically.
But yeah, he just reminded me of Worf, like straddling two worlds. When he said, "Oh, I'm from Cincinnati," I'm like Worf.
I think that's like why they had
people. Plus, they were total opposites. Here she is trying to, escape the stereotype, and he's trying to embrace it. I thought that was a perfect dichotomy to and a catalyst for both of them to come. Wouldn't strike me if later on he does come back and they hit it off. Because sometimes opposites attract, and it was sort of a moment for them.
I thought like it was interesting that they were different shades of green.
Yeah,
like she's
that's why he even asked what
green.
region she was from. Didn't he ask her what region? So that's another piece of history or knowledge we have of their world. That depending on what region you are, you could be forest green as opposed to.
He asks if she's from the north.
Green,
So it's a bit like it's a bit like the Romulans in Picard haven't been described whether they've got the head bumps as north or south.
It's kind of interesting that they are doing more of that because I mean even Andorians we're seeing different shades of blue now. I mean the Aenar are white and there's not much you can do with white, but but we're getting like different shades of Andorians from pale blue to like whatever Rin was when he looked like he was melting.
But like technically, like all the way back in like the animated series, there's like a grey Andorian, but yeah, he's not referred to as an Enar. He's just like supposed to be an Andorian in Yastir.
Yeah, now we could have Pepper Winkle Blue and Smurf Blue.
Yeah, like it's. I kind of like that they are doing that because that's one thing that always bugged me in Star Trek was all the Vulcans are white. All the Klingons are black. Like what, there has to be different shades. Like it just didn't make sense.
Well, even in classic Trek, we saw Koloth was not as swarthy. He didn't have the makeup that say Kor and Kang had. Yeah. To darken their skin a bit.
There's a Romulan commander in Pegasus. He's a dark-skinned guy.
Yeah.
He's like one of the few times you see a dark-skinned Romulan, but
there's two Vulcans, a Vulcan. But yeah, like even in the first
We never knew
episode,
there was black Vulcans until Tuvok. So
even in the first episode, the Klingons are introduced in Out of the Mercy. Like some of the Klingons look different, whether they're like hero Klingons or whatever. You know, core looks different from like the background Klingon.
I kind of wish that Klingons didn't rely on darkening skin of white actors or anything like that. That wasn't necessary.
I disagree. I think that there was no problem with that. They were trying to experiment with an alien race. They didn't know what they wanted to distinguish it to another alien race. And let's face it, in the 1960s, they didn't have a whole lot of ways to do that. They didn't have the kind of prosthetics or budget to do anything near what they did that. And they pretty much abandoned it by that point where Koloth came around, because they probably didn't have the money to do that. But
literally any other color, they could have made him pink, you know. Like
a pink Klingon.
So
no.
how many?
They were modeling them after the Mongols, actually. So they were trying to
mustache.
Plus, certain colors wouldn't show up good on produced film back then. So I mean, some of those colors are just no go.
Yeah, they use blue eyeshadow and of course Kelly's face. So you
they use blue eyeshadow on all of them guys.
Yeah, that's true.
Those guys their blue eyeshadow budget's bigger than mine.
How many rank tips out of 5 would you give this episode? I think it's a solid 3.5. Like I think I think the Jennifer thing was just so weird. It was so bizarre to like manipulate your partner to bully somebody. That's so bizarre, and doesn't really justify itself. The characterization of the friends, the women, it was really like a misogynistic stereotype. It was really bizarre. And I did enjoy the DS9 nod. Kind of wish that like there were more of them. I do appreciate that they did a sort of like use a Ferengi episode as a template for this episode. I think most of the jokes were pretty good, but at some of the plot choices, like why?
Right. So enjoyed this episode overall. I'd say the only things I wasn't particularly good with was, Boimler kind of being shunted into the back, basically into the back of Quark's, just standing there playing Dabo the whole time. And then, yeah, Vanessa, like you said, Jen's friends being just totally insufferable. But I'd say that only brings it down to about a 4 for me.
I'd go with 4 too. For me, the episode was Deep Space Nine kind of mini reunion, and the Tendi storyline. Mariner's storyline I'd put to the side of 3, so maybe I didn't focus it on that and just saw it as the stereotype of the mean girls. But there were holes in here. I agree with you that there was definitely holes in this episode, but I would still overall give it a 4. Pip, Mark.
I would say 4 as well, because I really did like Mesk being like almost like him and Tendi being like Worf and other Klingons. I liked those kind of parallels. I wish we'd have had, like most of us, I wish we'd have had more of the DS9 actors in it. But at least they didn't go profit and lace type template with this one when they did go Ferengi. But the only part that really I didn't care for would be, other than the fact that I wanted to slap Jen's friends around, because they would have deserved it. I think the only other part, for me, was they shoved Boimler in the back playing Dabo, so we didn't see much of Boimler. And we didn't really see much Rutherford either, come to think of it. So, but
it's a lot to juggle, a lot of characters to juggle.
Yeah. And I did like the sea shanty bit they threw in there, because with sea shanties being a big TikTok fad, like it just fit. And the lyrics were hilarious. Like, I could actually see myself teaching that song to some of my students.
I'd probably say 5. I really liked it. I liked the way it balanced character development from Lower Decks with having this big Easter egg with the Deep Space Nine visit. Overall, yeah, like I just couldn't find too much. I mean, there were some jokes that didn't land so great, but all in all, I really liked it. I enjoyed the fact that the crossover didn't take the episode over. Characters still got time to develop themselves, like in their situations they were in. Even Carol Freeman with like the diplomatic situation, like had a little bit of growth there, where she was like figuring out how to manipulate Quark to save the situation. And I mean, all in all, I just thought it had a lot of elements that worked really good. So I mean, I would definitely give it a full score. I really enjoyed the crossover and the way it carried well with some of the ongoing stuff from the series itself. So I mean, I couldn't complain really.
At the beginning, when they were going around Deep Space Nine and the Deep Space Nine theme tune and the wormhole, I was like, that's 6 out of 5. And then when they went around and did it again, I was like 7 out of 5. But no, actually, no. I think I go for a 4 as well. I missed the Defiant. I would have liked to see. The Defiant.
That's so true.
I thought the tractor beam was going to be the Defiant grabbing him.
Yeah, it would have been nice if the Defiant had turned up at the end and like, come on, towed him back from the wormhole, and Worf could have like thrown him at an airlock and onto the promenade or something, that would have been that would have been pretty good. But I think because of the salon scene and the lack of Defiant, 4 for me, maybe 4.5.
What about you, Dan?
I'd give it 3.5. Like Multiban said, I missed the Defiant as well, and wish there were more characters than like only 2 main characters and more from returning from DS9. But I enjoyed it at the same time. Yeah, I thought it was. As I said at the start, I appreciated that it's sort of not only fleshed out like the Ferengi or whatever, and had all the crossover elements, but also fleshed out into the Orions to an extent.
Is this episode going to make it on I Love Bad Star Trek, Vanessa?
I don't think it qualifies. I think there's enough redeeming qualities in this particular one. It's just that the Jennifer part for me was just so unnecessary. Because it kind of like makes me question whether Jennifer is like a good person, like to manipulate your partner like that. Like what else could this mean? Like unless like it just makes her seem nefarious in a way where it's like it's probably never going to be explained again. We're never going to get like an explanation as to why she would feel motivated to bully her own friends or be friends with people that she thinks need bullying. But yeah, so we hope you, our viewers, have enjoyed this episode. Let us know in the comments section what you thought about it. Please remember to like and to subscribe to the video, and we'll see you next time for the next Lower Decks. Truck you later.